Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to show you how to make this card with a really fun scalloped and die cut edge. And we do this by mixing a few different supplies that we have in our stash. I'm going to be using a die cut on the edge and an embossing folder to get that look. And the stamps I'm using are from our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them online at pegstamps.com and use the coupon code Lindsay17 to save 20% on your peg stamp order. So the first thing I want to do is prepare the card base because it's nice to have that done, so when we're done our stamping we can just put the card together. And what I have here is just half a sheet of cardstock folded in half, and I'm using the Heavyweight Recollections cardstock because I like that when I'm doing a real simple card. It's just really sturdy and nice to work with. So the first thing I want to do, and by the way I just want to show you the difference between the two folders we're going to use today. I used this folder. It's just a very dainty little scallop for the little scallop across there, but I thought this one would be kind of cool because I can actually fit a thank you sentiment in the center of this little recessed area, so I thought I would try this one as well. That way you can kind of see the difference between those two different embossing folders. Now this is an edge die cut. Basically what it does is it just kind of shapes the edge of your paper, and it actually has a little stitching line on it, so I thought that would kind of be really fun to use today. And so there's a couple different ways you can die cut this in your machine. You can either use a magnetic platform, and I have one of these here. Now not everyone has one of these. You don't want to use one of these if you have a pacemaker, for instance, because of the really strong magnets in there. So if you don't have a magnetic folder, or you don't want to use one, platform rather, you can use a little bit of washi tape to stick that down, and that's a great solution. Because sometimes you can see when you do use a magnetic platform, it'll even move your die a little bit because of the way the magnets are placed. So so you just want to be aware of that, and you certainly do not need to have it. So what I'm going to do is roll this through my die cut machine, and when I come back I'll show you the next step of stamping and embossing. Okay, so what I've done is trim that little sliver off the edge, so I've got this pretty stitched and die cut scalloped edge, which is just, I think, a really pretty look. And as you can see, this would be pretty for just an everyday card, or we could use it as a congratulations wedding, congratulations baby card. It's just got a lot of options. But I love to mix up old products with new, so I thought that this embossing folder, which I've had for years, would be really pretty here as well. So what I'm going to do is figure out where I want to do my stamping. Please I apologize for the furnace noise. Yes, I know it's like 90 degrees outside and our furnace is kicking on for some crazy reason. But I'm just going to kind of look at this and eyeball it and figure out where I want to do my stamping. So I want to do that first because it's just going to be a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is actually slide my embossing folder up a little bit just so I can kind of figure out where I'm going to want my stamping to be, and then grab the stamp I want to use. And I want to use this thank you from the Live, Love, Be Thankful set. So I'm just going to grab that right off there and put it on my stamp block. And I'm going to ink that up in bamboo leaves because I like to use a darker green when I am doing text just to make sure it stands out. And I'm going to stamp that right down in the middle, just below where I had my embossing folder. Okay, now I'm going to emboss this. Now you can't use your magnetic platform for your embossing. I just have to decide whether I want this indented or raised up. So I think I want the thank you area to be indented and the swirls to be raised up, so I'm gonna flip it over and arrange it that way, but you could have it whichever way you like. So once I have that where I want it, I am going to use a tiny little piece of washi tape to tack it down. And I like to use washi tape for this because it is less sticky and it shouldn't leave any residue, and it should be pretty easy to remove even after it's gone through the pressure of the machine. So another great use for your washi tape. A great use for ones that you're not crazy about, like if it came in a kit or something. This is actually really cute, but I've got so much that I'm going to use it. Now when I put this through my machine, I can't use my magnetic platform like I said before, so I'm going to use my multi-purpose platform with 0 tabs. So I'm going to fold those tabs away. I'm going to put my platform down. So I'm going to make my sandwich. So I got the platform, I got my first cutting pad. I'm going to put this on top. I don't have to worry about it moving. Oh, you know what? It is a little wide, so I'm going to actually have to fold this and send this through. Hopefully it doesn't do anything to my back of my cardstock. This one was narrow enough that I could just send it through, but hopefully this will work just fine, and I'm going to crank it through and I'll see you back here in a second. Okay, let's remove our folder, and it looks pretty good. I can see a little bit of a line. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I can see just a little bit of a ghost of a line from the edge of the folder, but I don't think it's really going to show up, especially after we do a little inking. And I think it's just a really pretty effect. I did unfortunately rock my stamp a little bit when I stamped the thank you, but I don't think it's enough to really redo it or anything. It looks fine, I think. So now what we're going to do is do our stamping and matting layers, and we're going to do that on a piece of cardstock. And this is my tip. You want to get two either die cuts or punches ideally, because they're so quick and easy, that are like kind of nested. So this is an 1.5 inch punch, and then I've got an 1.25 inch punch right there. This is an old Creative Memories punch. You might have one of these in your stash if you've been scrapbooking for a long time. And I just really like them because they're handy. They're not as easy to use as the newer lever punches, but I think they still work pretty well. Now here's my trick. I'm going to cut this off, and I'm going to use that as a template for my stamping, because I know I'm going to punch it smaller, so as long as whatever I stamp is within these circles that I trace here, I know it's going to work out really well when I go to stamp it. So I'm just going to trace these, and yes, I could trace those circles, but sometimes you get pencil or pen on the edges, so I figured if I do this on this scrap piece I'm going to throw away anyway, then my matting layers will stay really pristine. So the stamps I'm using today are from the sweet pea set, sugar pea set from Rubber Stamp Tapestry. I hadn't used these very much, and it's such a nice hot spring day that I thought, oh, this just reminds me of summer, and it would be a really fun set to use. Now remember, the edge is going to be kind of lopped off, because the punch that we're going to punch this inner layer out is smaller, so we don't have to go over the edge if we don't want to. We want to make sure that we fill it up well. And you can kind of twist it so you get different kind of perspective of each one, so it doesn't look like the same ones all lined up. You want to turn them. I like to have it so that registration mark is towards the outside, because that's kind of where the stems start, and that just gives it, keeps it from having any weird awkward lines, I think. And then if I feel like it's a little too sparse, I can just go ahead and stamp in the middle anywhere, but I do have some other stamps I'm going to use. So the pea itself, these look really weird unless you have a bunch of them. So when you first put a couple down, you're gonna be like, oh, why did I do that? That looks so bizarre. And I like to even ink it up with 2 different colors of ink sometimes, because it just gives it a really cool look. And they can go any which way, and they can be 2 different shades of green, because in nature everything's a little bit different. I try not to make it look too wreathy, just because, well, that one looks perfectly wreathy, doesn't it? Because I want it to look like kind of how they're clustered on the vines. Don't make them all the same either. You can have them hanging off as well. And then I've got this pretty little flower that also came from the sugar pea set. It doesn't look anything like a sweet pea flower, which is kind of funny, but I guess they wouldn't be flowering and fruiting at the same time. So I'm just going to throw this in wherever I feel like I want a little pop of that color. Try not to make them all lined up and perfect. You want them random. That's going to look a lot nicer. Okay, and then my favorite filler stamp is actually from between the paving stones. And I love this because anytime you want just a little blush of color, it's a great way to get that effect. And it's just so lacy and dainty that it really doesn't affect anything that you're stamping over too much. It just kind of gives you a nice fresh color. Now if you want more color than that, you can take a color duster, an ink blending brush here, and you can go and add a little bit. It's easier to do it before you punch it. I did the other one after I punched it and realized this was way easier. So then when you go to punch it, you want to flip over your punch so you can see in the window. And this doesn't matter what brand of punch you're using or what style, it's still the same deal. Flip it over. And it does take a little elbow grease with these types, not so much with the lever ones, but you can actually shift it around a little bit and see what you like the best, the looks of. There we go, and we're gonna get this last one. It's a nice workout too, I think. Okay, and then for the layer pieces, we can ink those up with a little bit of whatever color you want. I'm just gonna use pink because I got my pink brush right here. Just give them a little bit of color on the edges, mostly. And then we'll use foam tape to adhere these right on top. You can do this with whatever set you like. It doesn't have to be this sugar peas set. If you want to use a larger stamp, like a big background stamp, you could do that too and just punch out the designs from the background stamp. Okay, now I think it would also look pretty to kind of enhance our embossing by inking as well. So I'm going to grab this pink, and again, you could use any color we've already used, would look fine. And I like to start on the paper and drag it up, because that way you won't have any weird stops and starts. And this is a lot easier to do with a brush than trying to do it with a sponge. And then I'm just going to grab a little bit on the edges. Okay, so now I want to look at that and see what I think. And here is where I want to play with the placement. Now I could just have this on its own. On this one I decided to add some ribbon, but I don't know if I want to slide that down and put ribbon. I guess that's kind of a pretty touch. So I'm going to grab a piece of ribbon, and I keep it, you've probably seen in my craft room tours, I have it in a bird cage right next to my desk, so all I have to do is reach over and trim off a piece. And then what I'm going to do is use hot glue to stick it down. So what I like to do is just put a little row of hot glue about 1/8 of an inch from the top. I just get enough to anchor it down. I got a little heavy-handed with that, so I'm gonna like just kind of hold it off the edge a little bit so I don't burn my fingers. And then I just kind of smoosh the ribbon up to the crease. So that way I shouldn't end up with a glob of glue anyway. I do have a little bit of glob of glue there because I squirted too much down, but generally I would not have a glob of glue there and it would be just fine. Now I can actually swipe it away once it starts to cool. And then I make the finishing strip of glue across. Once I've anchored that first end, it's a lot easier to get the rest of it. Just try not to put too much out or it might seep through the ribbon. And you could use any ribbon, it doesn't have to be lace. I just thought the lace would be pretty, especially if it was a wedding card actually. And then for trimming, I use my ribbon scissors because they cut so much better than my paper ones for ribbon. I only use them for ribbon. And I just trim off the ends. And then I'm also going to use hot glue to glue these down because they'll give it a little bit of dimension and lift. That's what I like about hot glue. It's thicker than like wet glue or double-sided tape, and it just gives me that little extra dimension. And my tip for lining things up is to do the two ends. So I have 3 things here, so I'm going to do the right side, the left side, then after I get those placed, I'll center the middle one up between the two, and that just gives me a perfect placement every time. It works great for stickers too. Anytime you're trying to, line up letters, working from each edge to the middle, or you can work from the middle and work out if it's like a word, but hopefully that makes sense. It might not make any sense. But there you go. A very easy card to make that is very elegant and dainty, and you can change up the colors to fit your occasion. I hope you enjoyed this video today. Please check out our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them at pegstamps.com. And don't forget to use the coupon code Lindsay17 to save 20% on your order of Peg Stamps. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. And until next time, happy crafting.